Highlights of NFL Week 3. We begin with Thursday Night Football. Colts and Texans. Colts looking to get to 3-0. An end around of Michael Pittman Jr. gives them a lead early in the third quarter. Texans would get the lead back, though. Here, last chance for the Colts. 20 seconds to go. Phillip Rivers, who has been so solid this year, picked off by Dylan Cole with 18 seconds left, sealing a Texan victory. Houston's had a ridiculously tough schedule to start the season. We're finally getting a win column as the Colts suffer their first loss. 3 picks in this one for Phillip Rivers, who had a tough day. Texans were without David Johnson for this one, but Duke Johnson picked up the slack with 32 carries for 119 yards. On the receiving end, Will Fuller, 5 catches, 40 yards, led the way for Texans. Over to Sunday, 34-20, Eagles on top. A 61-yard field goal attempt for Jake Elliott. He puts it through and then some to seal the deal for Philly. A humongous field goal from Jake Elliott, 61 yards, and gets it through to give them a 17-point lead. Eagles win 37-20 for the second consecutive week. Alex Smith, 291 yards, solid game. Carson Wentz was not perfect, but got the job done for Philly. Eagles, though, had some injury troubles in this one. We're without Greg Ward Jr. and lost Miles Sanders to a foot injury, and he's expected to miss much of the remainder of the regular season. Rookie Jason Huntley out of New Mexico State picked up the slack on the running game, as did Boston Scott. And for Washington, Eagles were able to contain Thaddeus Moss with a huge performance in Week 1 against the Giants. Terry McLaurin was the leading receiver, 8 catches, 107 yards. Over in Foxborough, Patriots hoping to get to 2-1. 4th and 10, last chance. Cam Newton throws deep and overthrows N'Keal Harry, and the Jets with a big defensive stand. How about Gang Green? 19-16 victory. They're surprisingly 2-1 to start the season, with both their wins coming in divisional games against Buffalo and now in Foxborough. Cam Newton 20 for 42, 298 yards and a touchdown. But Sam Darnold's pretty accurate, 17 for 26, 225 on the score. But once again, the story of the day is the current NFL leading rusher through 3 weeks, Le'Veon Bell. This time 29 carries, 128 yards. Frank Gore only had 6 yards, but he punched in a touchdown. Patriot defense has been solid these last 2 weeks against the Giants and Jets, allowing just a combined 25 points, but their offense has really struggled this year. No more than 24 in a game this season, averaging only 20 points per game through 3 contests. In the snow in Buffalo, Bills facing up with the Dolphins, a pair of 1-1 teams in this one, and look at Josh Allen here, scrambling, throwing deep, and look at the catch by Stephon Diggs. They reviewed it. He got both feet in. An extraordinary play by Diggs from 43 yards out to make it 20-6 Buffalo in front. And you watch this tremendous catch right here by Diggs. That touchdown by Allen proved huge as the Bills win their second consecutive home game after getting blown out by the Jets in Week 1, while Miami falls for the second consecutive week. Bills take it 24-16. Tua with a nice bounce back after that rough game against Washington where they allowed 31 points in the first half, but Josh Allen, best performance so far this season for him. In the running game, Singletary and Moss each getting above 75 yards each. And Stephon Diggs clutched up when it mattered most. 8 catches, 116 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Buffalo was tied with the Jets for the AFC East lead. Let's take it to some highlights of a big AFC North matchup. Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Steelers looking to get to 3-0. Browns looking to get back in the win column at home. And they got off to a good start with Nick Chubb here for the score. Browns would get another in the first quarter. It would be T. Higgins on the slant route. It would be just the second passing touchdown of the game of the season so far for Baker Mayfield. The Browns an early 2-score lead against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh would bounce back, though. James Conner gets in on the run. Conner has had, with the Steelers playing so well, Conner has had 2 bad games to start the season, but gets in here 28 yards away to get the Steelers on the board. Chris Boswell's been busy kicking the football so far this season. here puts this one through to make it 14-10 late in the second quarter. Steelers would get the ball here on a brutal fumble by David Njoku. A great throw by Baker Mayfield on third down, and Njoku gets clobbered by Bud Dupree and turns over the ball. Later in the third quarter, Browns held off the scoreboard for almost 2 quarters. Till this, Baker Mayfield finds a wide open Austin Hooper right side of the end zone to give Cleveland an 11-point lead. This Steelers team was resilient. Ben Roethlisberger marches them right down the field here halfway through the fourth quarter. James Washington with the catch to get them within 1 possession. With 1:52 to go, Ben Roethlisberger gets picked off. He's actually thrown multiple interceptions here in back-to-back games that have otherwise been pretty strong performances, and all those picks coming in the fourth quarter in both the games. This one, not his fault whatsoever. It goes right through the hands of Jalen Samuels. And Mack Wilson was there to corral it just before it hit the ground. Pittsburgh would get the ball back, though, called their timeouts, and then with 11 seconds left, it's redemption. A pass to Samuels is caught this time, not slipping through his hands, and Pittsburgh comes back to take the lead. And that would be all, as the Steelers became the first team to get to 3-0, remaining undefeated with the last-second touchdown from Ben Roethlisberger. Browns had fended off a last-second touchdown attempt from the Packers in Week 1 and then couldn't convert their own in Week 2. Here they get stopped in Week 3 and fall 24-21. Baker Mayfield and Ben Roethlisberger both with really good games. And in a previous mistake, Ben Roethlisberger only had 1 interception in that game. It was that pick by Mack Wilson. It was 37 for 49, 373 yards and the 2 touchdowns. James Conner with his best game of the season with 80 yards and a touchdown. Cleveland got 78 and the score from Nick Chubb. And the big story of the day, tight end Trey Edmonds, 13 catches, 138 yards. Most catches from a player so far this season, overtaking Thaddeus Moss, who had 11 in Week 1. Huge game for Edmonds. The other AFC North game, it was Lamar Jackson and the Ravens controlling the Bengals from the start, taking it 36-24 for their first win of the season. Lamar Jackson threw for a season-high 203 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Joe Burrow was held to just 195. Mark Ingram, who was hurt for part of Week 2, bounces back here, 13 carries, 119 yards and a touchdown. Joe Mixon, 19 carries, 116 yards and a touchdown for Cincy. Mixon also led the way in receiving for the Bengals with 84 yards, while Hollywood Brown with 56 for the Ravens. But some injury news for Baltimore. They had a few guys go down in the game, a couple on defense, but also Mark Ingram re-aggravated his injury from Week 2, and now might miss next week. They also lost tight end Mark Andrews for a couple weeks. Over in Tennessee, Titans and Jags facing off in Week 3, and Derrick Henry, who's had a slow start to the year, with a huge touchdown and a stiff arm for effect in the end zone. Great job here, getting to the left, heading towards the pylon, and then just throwing the defender absolutely to the ground as he got in to give the Titans the lead. They would roll in this one. Second biggest blowout in the NFL season so far. The Titans take it 45-10 over Jacksonville. Ryan Tannehill, an impressive performance, 292 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 2 picks as the Jags got to 3-0. The Titans got to 3-0. The Jaguars are the first team to be 0-3. Gardner Minshew, Dan Jeffries, and Jake Luton all got opportunities at quarterback. No idea who's starting for them next week. Derrick Henry with a big game, 27 carries, 127 yards, and a touchdown. He'll have to pick up the slack even more. Darrington Evans was hurt in the second quarter and is expected to miss next week's game against Indianapolis, so big opportunity coming up for him. How about the day for Jonnu Smith? 9 catches, 139 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Like Trey Edmonds for the Steelers. Big day for tight ends in the NFL. Titans like we said, big matchup next week with the 2-1 Colts. That will be for the lead in the AFC South in Week 3. Falcons and Bucks here. This was a wild one. Tom Brady here finds Rob Gronkowski for his first touchdown with the Buccaneers. The traditional duo, Brady and Gronk, hook up for the first time in Tampa. Later here, 14-10. Look at this. Tom Brady's going to roll out. He's going to try to run and then get shaken up. And Brady would go down, grabbing his hand. A lot of concern on that play. Brady would briefly come out of the game. Tom's not really one to get hurt, but 43 years old. Rare to see him scramble. And he was a little shaken up on that play. Fortunately, though, it was just a dislocated thumb. He came back in the fourth quarter, and here hands it off to Ronald Jones, who takes it in for the game-tying touchdown with just 32 seconds left. Buccaneers still looking for their first win with two tough losses against New Orleans and Tennessee. Tied at 17 here, Young-Ho Koo misses the potential game-winning field goal just wide. It was a long one, 66 yards. And we go to overtime, tied at 17. Buccaneers with a chance to win, driving, and then watch what happens here. Tom Brady spending way too much time in the pocket, trying to avoid the tacklers, and they get there, he fumbles the ball, it's picked up, and the Falcons on the run down to the 40 to the 30, but thankfully getting there somehow was Pearson for the tackle after Dante Fowler Jr. recovered the fumble. But now the Falcons were in perfect position to kick a game-winning field goal. Young-Ho Koo misses the field goal. He had made his first 7 field goal attempts of the season, misses one in the fourth, misses a game winner here in overtime. This one was not even close, and Tampa gets another opportunity. And a huge throw there late in first overtime. Remember, rule change, no more ties. We just go to overtime number 2. Ignore that weird graphic there with 17-17. But the Buccaneers could really just punch it in or kick a field goal now after that deep throw by Brady. And that they would. Ryan stuck up 24 yards. First play of second overtime. If this was the old rules, this would have been a tie. But the Buccaneers scored in second overtime, just 3 seconds off the clock, and Tom Brady, despite suffering an injury, comes back in and leads the Bucs on a game-tying and then game-winning drive to ultimately outlast the Falcons. Back-to-back really ugly losses for the Falcons in games they've given away against the Colts and the Buccaneers. Tom Brady, 349 yards. You see, when he was out for almost a full quarter, Josh Rosen only had 1 pass attempt, and it was an incompletion. They just ran the ball that whole time. Ronald Jones got the starting nod after Leonard Fournette had a couple of bad games in a row. He and McCoy ran the ball well for Tampa, while Todd Gurley had a nice game for the Falcons. And then Julio Jones, 7 catches, 100 yards. Gronk had a good day, 7 for 78, and a touchdown for the Bucs. Saints gave Drew Brees a rest day after his rib injury in Week 2 against the Texans. Taysom Hill stepped up in a big way as the Saints took down Carolina 35-14. Slow start for Hill, who struggled last week when Brees got hurt, but a great game. 25 for 35 here, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a QBR of 128. Alvin Kamara was shaken up in the game. He's questionable for next week. So is Drew Brees with 20 carries, 88 yards. Speaking of huge tight end performances, here's another one. Jared Cook, 8 catches, 136 yards in this game. Final game of the 1 o'clock slate to look at, Minnesota and Detroit. Look at this catch by Adam Thielen. First of all, it's one-handed. Second of all, he is in triple coverage and gets it across to score the touchdown late in the first half. Other than that, though, it was not a great day for the Minnesota offense as they suffer their first loss. And hey, the Detroit Lions are 2-1 as they win this one 27-17. Another good game for Stafford, 315 yards, 2 touchdowns. No turnovers for Kirk Cousins, but he had only 192 yards. And you see Matt Prater also had a passing touchdown for Detroit in this one. 18 carries, 53 yards for Adrian Peterson led the way in the victorious Lions, while Dalvin Cook did not have a great day. TJ Hawkinson had 2 receiving touchdowns for Detroit. Thielen 2 for Minnesota. Kenny Galladay led the way in receptions with 11 and yards with 132. Shifting to the 4 o'clock games, once again, this show will only consist of all the day games. We'll have Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football in separate videos. First 4 o'clock game, the Chiefs get to 2-1 and take down the Broncos 28-13. Patrick Mahomes, who's had a little bit of a slow start to the season, his best game so far, 24 for 37, 289 yards, 2 scores and a pick. Jeff Driscoll not terrible, but not as good as his Week 2 performance when they got that win against the Raiders. Melvin Gordon with his second consecutive 100-yard rushing game, while Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the rookie, 23 carries, 71 yards and a touchdown for Kansas City. Sammy Watkins with a good game, while Travis Kelce was sort of quiet. Kelce, though, it was kind of a weird game for him. He had 80 yards, but only 2 catches in the game. Also had a touchdown reception. Sammy Watkins, 7 catches for 60 yards in the touchdown. And speaking of the Raiders, they fell in a close one in the division, will play for the second consecutive week. Justin Herbert continued his red-hot season, and now the Chargers are finally in the win column. Herbert has eclipsed 300 yards in all 3 games this season. I believe entering week 4, if my math is correct, he's either 3rd or 4th in passing yards in the NFL. Might be behind Ryan Tannehill, but he's only definitely behind Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson, having a huge season. Derek Carr had a good game too, but threw 2 hits in the 4th quarter. Austin Eckler with a nice day on the ground, 22 carries, 118 yards and a touchdown. And in the receiving game, Keenan Allen, 9 catches, 189 yards and a touchdown. Josh Jacobs played limited snaps at running back due to a hamstring injury. Actually had 7 receptions though, kind of a weird day. 49ers absolutely steamrolled the Cardinals 42-21 behind a solid game from Jimmy Garoppolo. Kyler Murray, well, it's not been a good year so far for him. 50 passing attempts, that's more than any other quarterback in a game this season. 347 yards, but 4 interceptions. He's already thrown 7 in 3 games this season in comparison to, I think, only 4 touchdowns. Jimmy Garoppolo, again, a quiet game, only 194 yards, but the 49ers offense and defense were clicking. At one point, they had 34 unanswered points. Cardinals were without the services of Kenyon Drake in this game, and Eno Benjamin, the rookie from Arizona State, stepped up with 20 carries for 70 yards, while Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman each tallied a touchdown for the San Francisco offense. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 catches, 128 yards, and a touchdown for Arizona, while San Francisco's receiving attack was led by George Kittle. Just 4 catches, 38 yards, but he did have the 1 receiving touchdown from Garoppolo. Aaron Rodgers had struggled the first 2 weeks of the season. So had the Packers offense, but that was not the case here against the Bears. Robert Foster with an impressive catch right there to get to the end zone and give the Packers a 27-0 lead at halftime over the Bears. And you watch this throw by Aaron Rodgers, that's what he was not doing against Cleveland or Detroit. Great job finding his target. Surprisingly, in the second half, though, the Packers pulled a lot of their starters, kept Rodgers in the game, but a lot of their main receivers, Davante Adams, did not play as much, and they did not score again in the game. Bears scored 14, but Chicago is 0-3, losing this one 27-14. The Bears, they should not be 0-3, but they have had such a tough schedule, having to play Minnesota in the snow, the Steelers, and the Packers to start the season. Trubisky, another solid game, 305 yards, but found themselves in a big hole early. That defense, which is usually so touted for the Bears, just was non-existent at Lambeau. Aaron Jones is also at a quiet start to the season, but a good 121-yard performance on the ground. And finally, a good day for Davante Adams, 9 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. So we will upload highlights separately of Sunday Night Football between the Giants and the Cowboys, and Monday Night Football, which was a classic between the Seahawks and the Rams.